You are now watching It Needs to Be Heard. My name is Onika Terrell.
And I'm Mr. Robert Eugene Young. Now that you've heard it,
what will you do? So we are excited today, once again. Today is April the 14th, 2019. We are talking about food deserts, and we have two special guests in our studio today, Ms. Kate Urbanks and Mr. Howard Lee, and they will talk a little bit more about food deserts and other topics concerning that.
Yes, what's up, right? Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, we just thank you awesomely because, as you know, it needs to be heard. We're even though we're here to be a platform for unique causes, but this is something that many of you may have never heard of. Even though I might have heard of food deserts because of my community involvement, but maybe you haven't heard of food deserts. But also, we will also be touching on composting. And many times you think of composting, just leave it as it is. But Mr. Lee will be able to let us know more about composting and how it has become this great movement, not just locally, but internationally. So we're really glad to have them here today.
The title actually is Food Deserts and How We Can Create an Oasis for Our Community.
Yes.
So
yes,
we're excited.
Oasis.
Oasis.
Yes.
So we're going to just touch back a little bit about last week's show.
Yes. Stacey Baez.
Stacey Baez, and she's an ocean conservationist, and basically how we can all get involved in assisting our oceans to be healthier and cleaner. I was really impressed and also excited to have her because I just enjoyed that show a lot.
Yes.
Not just because she's my neighbor from the north, from
Absolutely.
Trinidad and Tobago, but because she gave so much information concerning how the ocean provided us oxygen, how much of the plant and wildlife that are affected when we overfish. It's not just a regular man that's in his boat with a fishing pole. It's the large industrial fisheries that are affecting, unfortunately, our wildlife that will throw off any part of our ecosystem. Found out that 2.2%, which is still blowing my mind, that is only protected across the entire planet of protected waters. And so it was a great show. I just want to give her such credit, and Dr. Stacey Baez, just to say, don't be weary in well-doing. She travels a lot, and to speak with a lot of prime ministers and ministers of any different countries, and just basically explain to them why they need to protect the oceans. And you know, it's just not just water, not something we just go for our summer vacation. It's just something that we all need, and it affects us all. So I really enjoyed that show.
Yes, we really have to educate ourselves and see how everything works together. I mean, you think about, okay, we need the rain, we need the water, we need the land, we need the soil, we need the sun. But really how it all culminates, how it really relies on one another. Another thing she touched on, unfortunately, because of the pollution, because of the plastics, how the coral reefs worldwide are being negatively affected. And she did say within, I don't want to misquote her, but I know it was within 50 years that the whole planet will be without the coral reefs if we don't make a difference. Another thing she said as well, I touched on bottom feeders, you know, crustaceans and things, but she did give us a quote about the Chesapeake Bay when it was first discovered, that the clams were the size of a man's boot.
Yes. And
she touched on how they are part of the filtration system. But once again, everything has this purpose, but like you said, because of the overfishing, let's leave them alone. But for those who do consume them, just be mindful that we do have to be mindful because we want our planet to be here for our children. I'm only 18, no, just 44. But we do want this planet to be here. We really have to be forward thinkers, and that's why our today's show is really awesome because it is about forward thinking. It's about an existing problem with food, with the Rescue.USA, but also with composting, which will also be also instrumental with even what she was saying about waste management, to keep the waste out of the ocean in any form. I mean, it could be plastics, I could throw this away when I'm done, but at some point we will get there. So her show was really one of our best shows yet.
Truly enjoyed it, definitely. We're going to touch on our announcements.
Absolutely. Before we go there, we'd like to always thank Dr. Baruch for this opportunity. And if you would like your own show here, you can contact eLife Media Studios at 301-324-6900. That's 301-324-6900. Or Miss Chris Mary at 301-5 549-8216. That's 301-549-8216.
So our announcements for this week, we have the Growing Garden.
Yes.
The Growing Garden is a licensed family child care home located in Laurel, Maryland. It's serving the needs of ages 6 weeks to 12 years old and offering a full pre-kindergarten curriculum. The Growing Garden LLC, the hours are from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. They are a small, structured early education program providing high-quality care for working families. There is a waiting list from the summer and fall enrollment for 2019, but they do provide other services. So if you're not ready to just enroll your child just yet, they do have Parents Night Out, which is a weeknight and weekend child care. I'm sure a lot of parents
Absolutely
like that little break in between.
It's their fault. They had the kids.
And so they also have Movies on the Lawn, which is a summer and fall community event, and there also is a 6-week summer camp. Now remember, space is limited, and they also have aftercare for school-age children between the ages of 6 to 12 from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. But once again, the space is limited. You can follow them on Instagram at Kinderlaws, that's KINDERLAWS, or the Growing Garden LLC on Facebook. You can contact the director, Miss Monique. She's a caregiver with 15 years of childhood education experience at 301-310-9619. That's 301-310-9619.
And as many, I'm just cutting
Go
real
ahead.
quick. We're going to fly through this today because we want to give them a lot of time. But as many of you know that It Needs to Be Heard is part of the Peacock House Network, which is commercial space for entrepreneurs or individuals who would like to start their own business, which also offers business entrepreneur coaching as well, business coaching. Also, you also can do pop-ups there as well if you have products that you would like to sell there from one day to short term to long term. Also business meetings as well. And I call her the Nigerian connection. Is Dr. Chi Chi, which is my peer I met last summer. And her contact number is 240-413-9418. That's 240-413-9418. Like I said before last week, I did cancel, well, I can't say I canceled, my lease ran out, but I was giving my Zumba classes there, and I will be keeping you guys informed with my classes that I will be giving. And as always, It Needs to Be Heard. We would like to spread our wings even the more. We have the website coming up and many other things.
Yes.
But if you would like to show your monetary expressions of affection, please go to GoFundMe.com/It Needs to Be Heard. Also PayPal. Our email address is itneedstobeheard@gmail.com with an S. It needs. And also at Cash App $, It Needs to Be Heard. And Anika and I are already seeing this second season moving forward, and we have one more announcement, which was also, I'll go ahead and do it. Then you introduce the artist. We also have Robin E. that was here, that was the Double Dutch Fun classes that she gave, but we had her here to express about how she had a trip to Russia, in which she went to a basic neighborhood function, which is something that me and I guest talked about. Sometimes you go to those smaller functions to get bigger ideas. And because she was doing a neighborhood function for a friend, someone saw her from the Washington Post and offered her and her team a trip to Russia. And it was outstanding. So she's the lead Double Dutch coach and instructor. The name of the Double Dutch team is called DC Retro Jumpers, Double Dutch for Fun. And they can be reached at Double Dutch for Fun, that's the number 4, at gmail.com. That number again, finally, is Double Dutch for Fun, the number 4, at gmail.com. Woo! Yes.
Definitely. So if you also want to learn how to double dutch like myself, contact Ms. Gab.
Yes.
So our guests today are Mr. Howard Lee and Ms. Katie Urbanks.
Yes.
They are working with Food Rescue, and they will talk about food deserts. Now, I have to admit, when I first found out that we're going to talk about this, it was like, what? What's a food desert?
Absolutely.
So we definitely have them today to ensure that we get informed, educated, and also empowered to do what we need to do to help food deserts.
welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
And what they would do, they would introduce themselves and what they're all about, them and their colleagues, and Mr. Lee will as well. And this is your time. Hello, Kate.
Hey, hello.
How you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for having us here.
Yes.
Howard and I have a background because we're both members of the DC Food Recovery Working Group, which is important to kind of lay some groundwork. We are a group of people, probably 40 strong, who are quite active, and beyond that, an email list of 200 plus. And we are at the table basically talking about all types of food recovery, whether it's the type of work I do, which is rescuing food runs, and Howard works largely in composting. So anywhere we can work together to keep, number one, healthy excess food out of landfill, and any type of food scraps out of landfill, hopefully composted. It's better for the environment, it's better for communities, it's better for all of us. So that is my background with Howard, and what I'm here today to talk about is a food runner program called Food Rescue US, and I am the DC site director. And what I do is, by use of a very neat technology, an app that you can download on your phone or your computer, we are able to connect food donors who have excess food that they would otherwise put to waste. Awesome. Not that they want to do that necessarily, but a business owner has business to tend to and doesn't necessarily have the time or wherewithal to figure out how to donate food forward. It takes me a long time to figure that out too, so that's my job. What I do is I find those donors, I identify receiving agencies or community partners around the city who are in need of that type of food, whether it's prepared food or vegetables from a farmer's market. And I have to always make sure that the distance between the donor and the receiving agency is not too much more than, say, 15 minutes, to try to keep it so that the food is in the car. People use their own cars.
Yes.
For the shortest period of time, just to keep the food fresh. And also to make it more likely that my volunteer food rescuers would be willing to take the time to make that trip. So that is what we call a food rescue between a matched agency and a food donor. And what I do is I create these matches, put them up in my app, and then I have many hundred people volunteered registered in the app, but I'd say about 200 who are active and really getting the work done.
Oh, wow.
And that's a lot. A lot of people want to do food rescues in the evening or weekends, but as I need to remind them, we need to have an agency open to receive the food, and that's not necessarily easy at 10 p.m. when a restaurant is closing. So we do most of our work Monday through Friday during the working hours, and then on weekends. And so we have just in over 2 years recovered over 1 million pounds of food.
Wow.
Which is pretty exciting, because that's all food that is healthy, good food that would have otherwise been gone to waste. And if not waste, hopefully it would have been composted, but we don't necessarily know. So it's a bit of a milestone. We're having a fundraiser in less than a month to celebrate that, and I can talk a little about that later. But basically, quickly touching on the notion of a food desert. A food desert, an area where there's a dearth of grocery stores and restaurants, and so that is what is considered, I think they're coming up with a new term for it beyond food desert, but that's what we think of when we think of the 7th and 8th Ward. So it's all the more important for programs such as Food Rescue US to be able to, when possible, get this healthy excess food into this region by virtue of our volunteer food rescuers. So that is especially my goal as I look at the map and see how best to route food down here to where it might be needed by some of the agencies that I work with. So that's my role.
Awesome.
Awesome.
So with Food Rescue USA, Food Rescue.USA, which is the website, what is the background, the origin, and how long has it been in existence?
So it started in Connecticut, Fairfield County, Connecticut, where I used to live in 2011. The story goes, a gentleman who had created an app to, I believe, order restaurant supplies. So it was kind of food related. And the gentleman who later became our CEO were playing ping pong one night. He was a pastor, and the two of them were playing ping pong. And they said, we should do something. What can we do for good? And they said, what about if we take the app that we created and turn it into something that can help get food from one place to another so it's no longer wasted. And so it was originally called Community Plates, and it was started in Connecticut, and I was a volunteer for them. And I loved it so much because what you can do is you self-schedule. So you pull out your phone, you pull out your computer, you pick a food rescue that works for your schedule, and you just claim it, you click on it, and then it's yours. You don't need to be trained, you don't need volunteer coordinators calling you up and saying, what are you doing 3 weeks from now, you know, at 3 o'clock? And so it's a lot of flexibility as a volunteer. And so briefly, I was a volunteer for them for about 2 years up in Connecticut, headed back to DC where I went to college and have a lot of roots here, and was quite certain that there was a food in the district while I was looking for another type of job, and when I went to Google it, there was no such thing. And that was how I actually got linked to the DC Food Recovery Working Group, which was a key moment when it was clear to me that my efforts weren't being duplicated somewhere else. And so we together got buy-in from the rest of the members to help kind of give me guidance, help me make connections, and that's when Food Rescue US DC started about 2.5 years ago.
Awesome. It was a lot, but it was easy to follow.
It is a lot.
And with that in mind, we're going to come back to the DC Rescue, but we also have Mr. Lee here, yes. Specifically about composting. What would you like to share with our viewers today?
Well, first off, so my role, I work for the Office of Waste Diversion in the DC Department of Public Works, and I'm a program analyst there. And part of my work is to encourage influence composting, and definitely in Ward 7 and 8 and throughout the whole district. DC has a diversion goal of 80%, so we want to divert 80% of our waste from landfills.
Awesome.
But in order to do that, food waste, which is part of the largest part of waste that goes to food, over 50% is found in landfills. If we can't divert food waste, then we can't get to 80%. Yeah. So composting is very important for, one, diverting that waste. Also, food donation is important for keeping that food from going to a space where it has to be composted or thrown away. So I sort of work on sort of both ends of the spectrum, sort of encouraging food donation, which is my work with Kate and the DC Food Recovery Group, and then also encouraging composting for those people who have more than enough food and food waste that they incur.
Can you give us an example? What is composting, basically? If you've
So
never heard of it?
composting is really the process of actually taking your food waste and combining that with maybe, you say organic waste with some brown waste, so maybe leaves, and this will break this all down into a soil amendment. So I won't say like a soil, so I don't think you could just plant everything right in the compost. You want to add compost to your soil, so like a topsoil, and that will just sort of help with soil erosion or water, and it just helps grow your plants a lot better, food a lot better. It's what I think the farmers call it's like black gold to them. So they use this a lot, and so that is a piece, and that's just one piece of the pie, if you will. So farmers, and what I was explaining to Kate, like when you get into composting, you realize the people who are doing it are farmers. These are people who are actually working with the land, they're working to grow food, and so this is very vital to that whole process for them. So they are also into healthy food and vegan food and growing their own food and having sort of that healthy food access part piece, and then bringing it full circle with composting the waste and the overgrown stuff, or donating that and avoiding the landfill piece.
That's amazing.
Okay, awesome. So, talking about Ms. Eubanks, about food rescuing, actually food deserts. What would you say within this area is the percentage of actual deserts of that?
You know, I'm not going to be an expert on the degree to which this is declared a food desert. I don't know, Howard, if you have more stats about it. It's just that it's known to be. It's something that I know that food justice, there's activists. I remember a year and a half ago or so, there were citizens who carried grocery bags atop their heads or over their heads and walked the distance it took them to get by foot to the nearest grocery store as an act of kind of civil disobedience, to kind of show that, you know, talk about this shall be heard. You know, it was a concrete example of what it takes for residents in parts of this area to be able to get to a grocery store. There are now, I understand, some of the ride-sharing programs are offering discounted ride lifts, I believe it's Lyft, for seniors to be able to get $1.50 rides to the nearest grocery store and back, because it's really something that has to be addressed. So the food desert issue is something that I know the mayor's office is working on, and a lot of people are putting a lot of thought into. And what my program can do is, as we are recovering excess healthy food around the DMV, but I look for any opportunity to have my volunteers drive it into some of the agencies that I work with. We don't work with individuals, we get food directly to agencies that also serve the community in that manner. So even in the Food Recovery Working Group, we all feel like we have our lane. We're all doing something toward the common goal. So my Food Runner program is part of an overall effort working with other food insecurity agencies to try to address the need down here. And anytime we're talking about the issue of the food desert is when people are learning more about it, paying attention, figuring out how they can be involved, learning how to be advocates. And so I'm happy that we have this opportunity to talk about it.
Yes. And with our viewers, go ahead.
I just wanted to add, like, I think there is a certain distance that that's established to say that you're in a food desert, that if you can't get to healthy food within a certain mile range, then you are in a food desert. So you think there are some neighborhoods where there's only one grocery store, and that grocery store is more than 3 miles away, then you're technically in a food desert. So the access to healthy food is a little far for you, or you may have to take public transportation to get to that. So that would make you food desert, qualify you to be in a food desert.
Okay, so anyone of you can answer it. Once it's known that it is an area where it's difficult, and your organization steps in to assist, how can it be more affordable and also still healthy for the community? What procedures or processes in place for that?
Well, my program is free. My program brings food for free. My program brings food that is always really glorious and healthy. I mean, I'm stunned. People talk about their cars smelling like roasted salmon and asparagus and all sorts of healthy things. So what we do is we're able to transport, because of the goodness of the volunteers' hearts, to take the time in their cars. We have a couple people on Capitol who use a wagon. I call it the food rescue wagon, and she wagons down the street from We the Pizza. Chef Spike Mendelson, who's the chairman of the DC Food Policy Council, who's a big advocate for all of the work we do, and he's particularly been wonderful to me in my work to help advance it. But so she picks up his excess pizzas every morning and takes her wagon right down the street on Capitol Hill. Which there are parts of the 6th Ward, I believe that's the 6th Ward, that is, you know, we have some particular need to get food to some of these agencies. So yes, my work is, my biggest struggle is that the majority of the donors, because there aren't many restaurants and grocery stores here in this region of 7th and 8th, it's really hard for me to identify and make a food match between a giant that's in the food desert and a nearby agency. So I have to kind of gauge how long a volunteer would be able to give of his or her time, particularly with some traffic issues, to get 35 minutes down from where the donor is. And a lot of my donors happen to be kind of centrally located in DC. But I'm always looking for, I have this dream that maybe we can find a spot where we could get a big refrigerator and we could have a halfway spot where we could start to fill the refrigerator. And it's not part of the model, and I shouldn't even talk about it, but it's you know, you have to think creatively at a certain point. And if there's a way to figure out you know, how to make it easier for the people who I'm really trying to get that food to get access to it, then I'm very open to suggestions.
Awesome. Oh, okay.
It's really amazing, Onika, how like these last couple of weeks has been sort of tying in together. Because we're talking about waste management, and we were talking about the ocean, now we're talking about the land. And to our viewers, these landfills have been a major issue for many decades. And we must get a hold of it, or we're going to be just amongst so much the effects of the environment, the air quality that's going to be affected. We really do have to think of creative ways. So your idea was great. You know, and I believe that someone will hear your idea and then run with it. And that's what the ultimate goal is, but it needs to be heard. Because we want things to be heard that you may not hear on an everyday basis, but now that you've heard it,
what will you do?
There you go.
So I come from, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say something quickly because
Sure.
Howard and I both feel that it's helpful to have people think about what is called the waste hierarchy pyramid, which is
Yes.
an EPA technique, think piece, that it's a way for us all to think about how to reduce food waste. And at the top, the notion is that people in general should produce less. Be sure that that healthy excess food goes to people. After that, animals. After that, industrial ways to repurpose it for fuels, etc. And after that, composting. After that, landfills. So the landfill is the absolute last place you'd ever want. And so the notion is to really work on getting it to the top levels. And it's kind of helpful when people, just like hearing the term food desert, and then they think about something that they didn't know how to label necessarily. And this is something that that I think personally, when I am able to draw people's attention to it, it gets them thinking. And you realize that my lane, not to be one up on you, Howard, but my lane is people. And as Howard has said, he does everything he can when we're in the community to make sure that people consider food donation first. But composting is critically important, and to the environment and to farmers who use, what comes from the composting process. So it's just, I think it's, as we're talking about food waste, it's something good to kind of bear in mind.
Absolutely.
Okay. I was saying that for most of our viewers who know, I'm from Guyana, South America, and the way that we get our food is basically farming. I have family members, friends who are pretty much farmers in the rural areas, and that was obviously ways to get healthy food and also accessible food. A lot of the farmers, of course, would would sell their produce in a cart along the community, just going along the communities to sell fresh fruits and vegetables. If you were in more urban areas, in the city, in the larger cities of Georgetown, you would go to an open air market to get your foods. But for those who are living in more concrete urban areas, my question is, how can the community get involved in more, say, planting? How are getting areas and patches? Because I'm not a planter. I can't save a house plant. I'm just not good at that. But what are those who do enjoy that, or who just want to learn how to do that? How can they get involved?
There's several. The city offers several programs, even with the Department of Parks and Recreation. There's some community composting programs where you can actually go and learn how to compost, and you're part now of a community. So there is a community bin where you can take your food scraps and you work this bin with someone else in the community. There's one person who's a manager who's going to be like, hey, you need to show up on this day. But you take this 1-hour course, and now you're taking your food scraps there, and that compost is going to be used in the community garden. And so you start bringing this full circle. So sort of keep pushing that message of making that circle. I'm going to put my waste here. It's going to turn into something really great, and I can use this now to grow more plants, grow more vegetables right here at this community garden. So it sort of brings that familyness together. It brings community together. All by just sort of diverting your waste, right? So you're saying I'm not going to throw something in the trash. Here's what I'm going to do with it. But it starts a trend. It starts people to sort of think a little bit differently about how they get their food. So my hope, I guess, or my dream is to sort of have that in an urban environment where there is places where the garden there's fruits, vegetables, healthy foods being grown there, and then it's being sold, or the community has access to it. And I appreciate that sort of circle and that circular sort of economy, if you will.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
And I don't even look at it as being little. I think it's magnificent. And the word you used that jumped out to me was trending. And if we stick to that, we can stay encouraged in this mission, this vision that you all have, because it's going to catch on, and hopefully with the current generation and the next generation, within the next 10 to 15, 20 years, it'd be like every day. It'd be something that's normal.
Yes.
It'd be the new normal.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking for, the new normal.
And that's interesting you mention it, because Food Rescue US, I have been invited to table at 4 different events to come and describe the Food Runner program that I have, because people are more and more understanding that working with food waste and food donation is good for the environment.
Yes.
There's something called Project Drawdown, where I believe some scientists have examined the top 100 really tangible things that we can do to address climate change.
Yes.
And addressing food waste is number 3, which is so surprising to me. I mean, I've been working in this for a couple of years and didn't quite know that that was something that can be cited, that is how critically important it is for us to get a handle on our food waste. So that is why I am now going to Earth Day events to talk about our role in keeping the environment healthy.
Yes, and the Nobel Peace Prize goes to Ms. Urbank.
Oh dear.
Were you about to comment?
No,
Okay.
I guess I just, piggyback on that. I mean, that's sort of exactly what we're doing. I think waste is just one piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
You think there's hunger, so there's access. So, we deal with people. I just think that it's a funny and ironic situation that we're in, that we're prosperous enough to say we have so much food to waste, yet we still have these people who don't have access to that healthy food. So there's sort of that disconnect, and I think that we're trying to fill the gaps there with both of our organizations.
That's very true.
Absolutely.
Mentioned that there's a program, I can't remember at the top of my head right now, but there is a program where you can contact for misshapen food, if I can call it that.
Ugly fruits? Ugly foods?
Yes,
Yeah, right.
yes, and you can also use it. But my question is, how can we avoid wasting food?
I do, I suggest this to everyone that I talk to, and this is just not about wasting your food, but it's about any kind of waste. Give yourself a waste audit. Study yourself. See what you're buying, see what you're cooking, see what you're throwing away. And after you do that, you say, I can make some changes here. I don't need all these peaches. I don't need
Exactly.
I don't need to buy a pound of, of Brussels sprouts.
Because it's on
probably
sale.
I can probably go with a half. So you want to do yourself a little bit of an audit, just to know your habits and what you're doing, how you're eating, how you're handling food. Because it could be that you're shopping too much. You could, buy too much, and that goes in the refrigerator, and you forget about it because you didn't plan to cook it and you didn't decide. SaveTheFood.org is a very good website that will give you sort of some tips on how to store your food properly and how long you can actually keep cooked food, which I think is a really handy thing. So you cook something and you're like, how long do I have to eat this? Do I need it? And you can actually keep it a lot longer than you think. Most people don't want to eat leftovers, so it encourages leftovers. And just doing those little tweaks to your habits is probably the best way to start reducing. So I don't tell anyone to go out, and I don't have any big tips. Oh, buy this, buy that. Study yourself first, because everyone's different.
And I have started, I live in an apartment, so I have, I bring my compost to the DuPont Circle Farmers Market, but my food scraps. But what I've been doing is in big plastic zipper bags in my freezer, I put my carrot stems, this, that, and the other, and there are times when my freezer has been more filled with food scraps than it has been with food. But that's another visual. I look at it and I think, if I'd have only thought a little more clearly, I would have not let that spinach go to waste. And I was out that night, and it becomes a little all-consuming, but then you calm down a little bit. You just get into the cycle. You've got to have a kick of awareness, I think, where it starts to really bother you, where you become alert to it, and then you start to make adjustments. I tease people that when I go out to dinner with them, they always feel like they have to clean their plates because I'm the food waste gal. And it's a little bit true, or certainly your take home. So just awareness. And there are, NRDC has some really good, National Resources Defense Council has some really good information about how to curb food waste. And
I find the biggest message when I tell people about curbing their food waste is the financial part. I mean, you do save a whole lot of money when you start doing that, and that is what usually gets people. You think waste, and you say, well, you actually wasted money instead of food. Oh, wait, you're right. I can buy one less banana or something that way.
And the water and the resources that go into, if you can bring it back to Mother Earth again and talk about what it took. There's a great PSA about strawberries that the mom and daughter shop at the grocery store and pick some beautiful strawberries in a container, pop it in the refrigerator, and then they're coming and going from the fridge, and you see it getting further and further back toward the back, and then the week passes, and the mother pulls it out, it's all moldy, and she puts it in the trash. And it's just kind of like, yeah, and they show it coming off of the farm. So you see the efforts, the resources, the human, gift of growing and producing food, and then to have it go to waste. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're believers.
Is it your opinion that, particularly if you go out to eat, that the food portions are just way too much?
Big, right?
Well, the reason why I say because I'm a food saver. If I do happen to go out, I will definitely bring home a doggy bag, or and that unfortunately is my confession that I do bring that back.
Why? That's a good thing.
But unfortunately, I may forget. It depends on what it was. It was great that night, and then it got cold, and you want to reheat it. It's not as great as it was when you reheated it. So, but is it of your opinion that the food portions are way too much?
I think they are. And I think already that when you next go out to dinner, you're going to have this conversation in your head, and you're going to go,
correct.
oh, now I have to really be mindful of eating that. But I think portions are really big. And I think, you see what it looked like in the 70s to go out to dinner, and now what it looks like. So there's a lot of advocacy work that can be done. I mean, we are working with, there's a lot of, I do think it's the right time talking about trending. I think food waste is a hot topic, and I think that even when I started this 2.5, 3 years ago, it wasn't quite as catchy as it is now. And so I think that, young people, we have food rescuers who bring their children along, and the children are able to see what it's like, and they witness 20 pans of food that would have otherwise been wasted, and they drive with their moms and dads 6 minutes, 8 minutes down the road and see the other side and see how happy people are to get the food. And it's the next generation, and hopefully they're going to...
We're part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking what things that I can do, just the things that I would normally put in the garbage disposal. I can compost that. Yeah. Something that we've been doing for generations, that's just giving people ideas of how to be more mindful. Even with myself being vegan, I remember when I was first making that transition, I would waste so much food because I didn't know the shelf life of things. And I do go shopping more. I probably go to the grocery store maybe twice a week because the food that I purchase perishes. But yeah, that audit, the food audit, waste audit. Yeah, catchy. You might want to coin that phrase if it's not already. But just whatever you put in the garbage disposal, viewers, that could be a start. We will continue with this effort, and I'm excited. I'm just so excited that you were able to be on our show today, and you brought Mr. Lee along with you, which is perfect because you would have been by yourself.
I would have kept talking, and it's much nicer to have Howard's voice and his expertise. And let me just make a quick pitch. There's a really awesome Zero Waste DC. There's some really amazing resources that the city has where you can go on and find out the nearest place to drop off your composting.
Okay, so our website is zerowastedc.gov, so you can go there and find our food waste drop-off program locations. We have one in each ward. All the 8 wards have a location. Most of them will start to open at the start of the market season next weekend, so there'll be 5 of them open, and then we'll open the rest. And then if you want to know about recycling, we have a great what goes where tool.
Really helpful.
That will tell you where things should go. So if you have like cardboard or a soda can, you type it in and it'll tell you how to dispose of it responsibly.
I think the day that I met you, I didn't know that there were different places to drop off used jeans that we wear, that they recycle those. So I was like, where have I been? But I think it was Mom's Market was one of the places. But I was like, so I have 3 pair of jeans that's still in my house now that I've been planning to drop off. But I feel like I'm doing my part.
And I'm going to make a pitch for my website, which is foodrescue.us. And anybody can go on that site and sign up as a food donor, a receiving agency, a nonprofit that feeds the community, or a food rescuer. all three pillars are equally important. As I get more donors, I need to make sure I have more places to drop it, more places to take it, and vice versa. So it is a really fun program. People are very, very rewarded by taking usually no more than an hour out of their day, and you can do one run a month, or you can do it, 3 times a week, or you could just kind of sit back till the run works for your schedule and keep looking for it. But it's I really encourage people to sign up, and it's just such a great way to enjoy community, because you go places you might not otherwise go, and you meet people that you wouldn't have perhaps before, and you literally see the impact of picking up food, how happy people are to give it to you, and how happy people are to receive it. So. And my fundraiser.
Yes.
My fundraiser. So on May 6th at a WeWork space, which WeWork was very generous to donate the use of their space, wine and beer. We have many, many of the restaurants and businesses that donate food to us. This time they're making it fresh, although I would have taken their recovered food as well. But no, we're having an event, and it is from 6:30 to 8:30 on May 6th. And Spike Mendelson is going to be there, being honored for his work on the issue. And Pixie Windsor, who is the owner of Miss Pixie's Furnishings and Whatnot, which is a shop on 14th Street, and she is extremely community-minded. She does 5 food runs a week, and she is just so engaged in the issue that we're honoring Pixie and Spike as 2 models, and hopefully we're going to get 150 people or so together to celebrate, and it's going to be fun and easy. And Food Rescue, how does it go? WeRescueDC.us is the website. WeRescueDC.us. That's the website for the event.
Awesome.
For the details. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a part in our show towards the end that we call Proverbs. It's called Guyanese Proverbs. Now, being from Guyana, we do speak standard English, but we do have a dialect called Guyanese Creolese, which is basically just a broken down form of English. And we share proverbs, basically like wives' tale, or just words of wisdom and advice. And so I have to definitely share with our viewers who seem to enjoy it, because I got a lot of people who contact me about them. Of course, my co-host is getting there. He is really understanding. We're so proud of him. Trust me, it's really getting better. So I'm going to go ahead and say the proverb in Guyanese Creolese. I'm going to go ahead and translate the proverb, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you the meaning of the proverb. Okay, are you ready? Okay. Dag by rum, cow drink hog and sty get drunk. Dag by rum, cow drink hog and sty get drunk.
Drink a cow, what?
So the dog buys the rum, the cow drinks it, and the hog in the sty gets drunk. So it's a matter that may not concern someone, but yet everyone gets involved or involve themselves, because this is a community affair. We have people that are in need of things.
Yes.
And the two of you, what you're doing is getting yourself involved and working with one another to get everyone involved, so that if one aspect of it is missing, the whole entire community kind of fails. So, the dog buys the rum, the cow drinks it, and the hog, everyone's involved in it. So.
It sure is.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
That's wonderful.
So as we come to a conclusion of our show, thank you so much for being on our show here today. I know you did mention the website. Was there any other forms of contact, how you all can be reached?
Yes.
You can zerowastedc.gov to reach me.
I'll make one more plug for the DC Food Recovery Working Group, which is what Howard and I are both members of. We have a Facebook page and a website, and it's just for anybody in the community who cares about all aspects of food recovery, who might want to come join us and be part of we meet once a month, the beginning of the month for a couple of hours, and then we have some very active working groups. Howard and I are both on a working group, which is one of the reasons we're here together, to explore ways we can get to know further our neighbors in the 7th and 8th Ward, so that my work can be advanced and Howard's work can be advanced. Yeah, so that's really a double thank you for the invitation, but it also meets a wonderful goal of ours to try. Anybody who wants to contact Kate.foodrescue.us, Kate@foodrescue.us is my email address, and I'm really eager to speak to anybody about any aspect of what I've been talking about here today.
And that you get DC Food Recovery at gmail.com.
Right.
for DC Food Recovery Working Group.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to thank you once again for joining us here at It Needs to Be Heard. My name is Onika Terrell.
And my name is Mr. Robert Eugene Young. Now that you've heard it,
What will you do? Thank
Thank you.
you.